everybody, and welcome back to AirwaySim. It's been almost 10 days since the last episode, but had some exams to deal with and things like that, and we're finally free. I've played a little bit in the meantime, but as you can see, we haven't had too much passenger growth. Our passengers are still growing, however, which is a nice thing to see. Um, and our airline is doing very well in general. If we take a look here, let's see, if we go to statistics, we can see that our airline is actually leading or very close to in many categories. Like we have the second most net profit, we have the most profit, or revenue in general. One thing I do find very funny is how much cargo, what's it called, stats I have. I'm transporting the most passengers, of course, which is the goal. Um, but we also transport the fifth most cargo without flying a single cargo plane, which I find pretty entertaining. We have a ton of passengers per year, as we mentioned earlier. Good credit rating, of course. All these stats are just doing very well. Despite flying relatively shorter routes, we also have the most revenue passenger kilometers, showing just how many flights we're flying. And we have the most flights by far, the most unique route pairs, which I think is pretty cool. Um, so yeah, and what is that resulting in? Well, that's resulting in our money doing pretty well. As you can see, we made less profit last week, but a lot of this is due to our fuel hedge ending. We'll go take a look at that in a second. And in order for what's it called? What am I trying to say? Yeah, and in order for us to make good profits, we really do need the fuel to be cheaper because flying passenger just inherently has a relatively low margin, especially with a lot of expensive leased long haul aircraft like we do have in San Francisco, which I'm sure are making very little money with the fuel price this high. Uh, yeah, oh, San Francisco's getting an upgrade, which is perfect because I was having trouble getting a lot of prime time slots in this airport. Yeah, with kind of the evening hours of slots kind of completely run out. It was getting pretty annoying to try to make new flights, so it's good to see that that's getting an upgrade there. Um, and one thing we also should take a look at is Dallas is an airport I have been struggling to dominate the market in, but something very cool just happened, which is somebody went bankrupt, leaving a lot of 5 a.m. slots. So we're going to go ahead and do a lot of scheduling in Dallas. Dallas is one of the airports which is kind of least efficient for 7 day schedules. So we 5 a.m. slots are incredibly valuable. So I can't wait to go ahead and use some of those. I can't remember if Las Vegas I already had during my last base. It's also getting an upgrade, and Dallas isn't, which is so funny. Relatively new. I'm a relatively new entrant into Dallas, right, or into what's it called, Las Vegas. So I'm gonna have to take some time in order to kind of get an edge over my opponent, Owl Wings here. Yeah, they're actually doing quite well as. Additionally, we can see that making a lot of good profit, and they have a lot of fleet types. Are they flying 4 fleet types? One, two, three, four. It appears that they are. So we keep an eye on this person and see if they can maintain this margin as they get bigger. Because with 4 fleet types, unless they go down to 2, that might be pretty tough. Yeah, I really hate to see people make this mistake because you're kind of dying for no reason, is the way I'd describe it. Like your airline is good scheduling, good plane choices, blah 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 blah, but you end up dying anyway, just due to the really kind of unintuitive game mechanic of not being able to fly 3 different fleets at one time. So yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how this player will do in the future because right now they look pretty good, but we'll see if that can be maintained. Anyhow, with that in mind, let's go ahead and open some Dallas routes. I rarely schedule on camera these days, partially due to how to. Oh yeah, yeah. Before we do that, before we do any of that, let's see if we have a new base airport available. 15 days. Okay, so we won't be opening that on camera. But what we do have is we need to go into fuel management here and start a new hedge. And it's going to be a 12-month hedge at 100%. Now, why am I going to hedge right away? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at historical crude prices, which the game is following at this point. I think it stops at around 2011, around when the game was coded. Now, if we take a look at where we are now, where are we now? I think we're September 2000. 7, yeah. So we're September 2007. So that's here. And if we take a look here, September 2007 is about exactly where um, the price of crude starts to fall again. So a 12-month hedge here will be just about perfect in kind of chopping off the top of this incredible fuel spike, which is incredibly dangerous if you don't come prepared. Anyhow, with that fuel hedge, we're basically saved from the historical fuel prices. And obviously, once you're passed into the future, you don't have to worry about that anymore. But the fuel doesn't do anything crazy after it escapes real life historical data. So anyhow, let's kind of see what's open in Dallas now. This is gonna look very tedious, and it kind of is in a lot of senses. But this is how I like to open routes, especially after a major bankruptcy. I'm sure there's kind of new routes available. Um, and yeah, basically what I do is I literally click every single uh, route to see if there's open demand. And if there isn't, oh, I closed an extra one by accident. So the route before New Orleans is a one we can open. Before New Orleans, San Jose. Okay, perfect. Right, and then when I am able to open the route, I go ahead and do this. Select the takeoff time, 5 a.m. Sure. And let's just see kind of what kind of like how many slots we have. At 18 slots at 5 a.m. on the dot, which is very beautiful. Um, this is so much easier than having to like 7 day or something like that. So, yep. Yeah, and this is basically the process. Later on, we can add more flights to compete with routes like this, where there's a very good demand pool of 700. I'm only supplying a few percent of that. But I'm not going to go ahead and do that yet because I'm sure there's open demand bars somewhere, or at least I strongly believe so. Um, so yeah, that's going to be kind of our plan. And a lot of these routes, I can use these for overnights. Yes, they're not far enough away to overnight in a normal way, but what I mean by using these flights to overnight is because there's no curfew at these airports, I can do a 7 day overnight where I overnight my plane at this base to save the good 5 and 7 a.m. slots. Um, and yeah, Kahului is too far for me to fly with any of my planes. Bradley. Well, there's a little bit of open demand to Bradley, so we'll go ahead and do that. And I think this is a bit far for this, but I think it should fit in just about 14:45. So let's like push that down to 14:40. Save 5 minutes here because I think it actually matters. 14:40. Yeah, see what I mean? And because of that, I land at 23:20, which gives me exactly enough time to slot in my A check. All right, not bad, not bad. So yeah, I'm gonna like go ahead and let's move some more aircraft over. So, um, let's go into my aircraft manager. I think Charlotte has a lot of unused aircraft, so we'll go ahead and say no route scheduled. And yeah, as you can see, we have a whole load of A321s here. I have basically ran out of A321s and what's it called? Which are like routes which are flying 7 day schedules and not A320s or 21s or larger, right? So I'm okay to just use these A321s with slightly lower usage if the route is a good one. Um, that is perfectly fine with me. And yeah, as you can see, like the process of finding these the open demand is a little bit tedious, right? But at the end of the day, it's not so bad. Um, so yeah, okay, there's no demand on page 1. So let's just like quickly check page 2 and get an idea, like just like a quick scan kind of idea, where if we check a few routes and we don't see anything open, we're gonna assume it's kind of like page 1 where most of the routes are not free. Okay, and I think it's probably like that all the way down, actually. Right, okay, actually, no, because we can clearly see that that route has a lot of untapped demand. Okay, so it looks like page, what's it called, 5 is where we start to see a lot of more free routes. So let's go ahead and do the same process for page 5. And we can start to construct schedules based on the length of routes we have. So basically the idea, if the average route length is less than say about 700 nautical miles, Then we do 3 flights, and if the average length of the route is above that, we do 2 routes. But obviously, we don't want to do like 750 nautical mile average length routes and do 2. It doesn't really work. Um, Instead, what we want to do is we want to find routes that add up to about 2,400 to 500 nautical miles, and that creates much more efficient schedules. So perfect. When we found a right route like this is a perfect 5 a.m. Flight. So let's go ahead and go to Rogue. I'm on the right page. I think I should be on page 5, right? Yep, there we go. No, why is this to Las Vegas? What happened here? Am I on the wrong page? I am, yeah. I was like, it's like 500 nautical miles. I clearly saw 1,300, so yeah. Anyways, the really nice thing about single day scheduling is, of course, the speed of it. You don't have to click so many buttons to open each route. I lost the scheduling page. Oh, here we are. Let's just refresh this a little bit and start adding in our new flights. So, yeah, perfect. And then basically what we do is we add about 190 demand to this. We see that this route is basically saturated. Now we close this so it doesn't confuse us for the future. Should know 2,000 billing. So I'm looking for a route, yeah, about this long, like Missoula, and this is perfect. So, yeah, as we can see, we've kind of found most of the more open demand now. So that's really great. One thing we do want to check that I forgot to check is to see if the turnaround times are going to be okay. And yet we 11:30 and 9:30, and this is going to be an afternoon flight. So of course, this should be okay. I once again lost the scheduling page. Let's move this here, I guess. Should be a little harder to lose. So 14:55. Yeah, should be no problems there. We are running out of like 15 o'clock slots or something like that. Some very specific time, but don't think 14 was included in that, so that's perfectly fine. And yeah, I basically just want to make sure I use all the 5 a.m. slots today. I'm not going to use all of them on camera because that might be a little bit tedious, but we will try to knock out a good chunk of this. So after we finish something like that, like look, if we refresh this, we'll see that the demand is not completely satisfied, but it's pretty good, especially once we upgrade these 736s to something a little bit bigger, with a little bit of demand here. Pasho, we could fit a flight here, maybe not with a extremely large plane. Oh, Bellingham. Yeah, this is a route we definitely want to open because that is a lot of open demand. And I'm sure it could use a 5 a.m. flight because when I was scheduling this earlier, I'm sure there was no 5 a.m. flights available. And now that they are, we can just easily schedule something like this with a large A321. I gotta say, we're just talking about the balance of useful planes in this game. The A321 is way too much better than almost any other aircraft from its size. Its cost structure is not much different from its A320 or 737-800, and it carries like 20% more passengers. It is ridiculously efficient for a lot of the routes that have just a little bit more demand, and I love it. Anyways, Buffalo, this is going to be a fine second route. Obviously, could have a little bit more demand, but with the randomized numbers of like how much demand we get, it's not too big of a deal. And I think that route is on page 2, actually. So let's go back to page 2. Buffalo, Buffalo, Buffalo. Yep, there we go. Yeah, as you can see, this is kind of just the process. Yeah, I kind of wish it was more interesting, but normally what I like to do is I like to throw up like a little video of something interesting, maybe something aviation related, maybe something not, and then and yeah, we can see that 15 was the period of time where we just didn't have enough slots for some reason. And 15:45, we're just gonna. Actually, I realized something, which is that This is not good. Yeah, and then we have no time for an A check. So we're going to have to compress the turnaround time just a little bit. And we're going to have to try to avoid the 15 time slot. And basically that means whenever I have a route like this, which takes off at 5 a.m., I have to make sure it's not around 1,500 nautical miles. I'll make sure the first route is the shorter one. The second route is the longer one. Yeah, that might be the strategy here. So, for example, I want to open Santa Barbara. Right, I'll make this the first flight, and then I'll find the second flight as the longer one. So let's go ahead and go all the way back to page 4. I think we're on 4 or 5. Let's see. Do I see Rogue near the top? No, I don't. So we must have been on page 5. It's really crazy how deep you can get in these pages of routes and still have great demand. So yeah, Rogue Valley. Rogue. Do I see it anywhere? Rogue. There it is. Oh wait, that's not the only one. Wait, was it? Oh, I'm confused. I have confused myself. I just closed one of the routes. Okay, this is a bit of a calamity, guys. I am probably, just gonna go schedule these planes off camera. Sorry for the shorter episode today, but yeah, I'm getting confused, and clearly I need to just chill a little bit. So, anyways,